What is up, everyone? Kevin Hale up in this Shooting from the Lip studio. Happy New Year, people. Sunday night, January 1st, 2017. Alive and kicking it here with the debut sports show for Shooting from the Lip, where it's total sports from the first syllable in my voice to the last round of sports shots. An in-your-face sports talk show. I will host. I'll have a panel. The panel will be the stars. My ego is set aside to give the guests, the ones with the real skills, all the credit and time they deserve. So we can guarantee there will be no lip-syncing mishaps like there was last night. Who was that? Pariah Carey. Her career is left. Anyway, social media, real quick. You can find our show on iTunes and YouTube. Subscribe there, please. Twitter at The Shooting Lip. My Twitter at KevinHale423. We're on the SoundCloud and Stitcher apps. You can like us, follow us on Facebook and Instagram, Shooting from the Lip. Also doing live shows on Monday and Tuesday nights, 10, 9 Central. Live tonight via Blog Talk Radio. Tonight's panel, 3 lovely ladies. Start off with, if I'm starting to turn on some mics, Michele Brown. Michele is the co-host of Big Blue View. She's also a writer for Cameron Mills Radio. Michele, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well, Kevin.
Good to hear from you. Thanks for hanging with me tonight as we try something a little different. And, if I'm going to try something new, you're going to be one of the people I'm going to try it with. So there you go.
I'm so honored.
Yeah. Also joining me for this escapade, Daryl Foust, who is co-host of Kentucky Women Talk Sports. She's been a frequent guest on the Monday night show. Daryl, what's up, lady?
Well, what's up? Good riddance to 2016. Welcome to hopefully a better year.
Yeah. What went on in 2016? Let's hope stays in 2016. So, rounding out the panel tonight is Shooting from the Lip own. She's part of officially part of the family, Heather Tungate. Heather, Happy New Year, lady.
Happy New Year, everyone. Hope you had a good night. Last night, I did, from what I remember.
Nice.
Sweet.
First, let's get it started. I've got segments. Just going to lay the groundwork here. Hopefully, I'm only going to have to do this one time. People who are familiar with the Shooting from the Lip show know that we have a little tongue-in-cheek thing called Round of Shots, and I will be incorporating that tonight, where I will throw 6 shots, 6 topics at my panel, and let them share their thoughts, opinions, views, and then go with it. And there's unlike some of the sports talk shows, there's no scoring or anything. There's no points or anything for being right or wrong. It's good banter, but we hope it's fun and in your face. Ladies, remember, this is internet radio, so speak freely. Daryl, you do your show on AM radio, which I know you have some restrictions because of the FCC, but the FCC doesn't play here, so keep that in mind as well.
Will do. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. Let's shoot first. Since we've got Michele and Daryl on, who do shows catered to UK sports, University of Louisville sports, I'm going to start with Michele. Michele, give us a quick state of the union of what has been going on with UK sports in the last, 24, 48 hours.
Oh, well, gee, I guess I should have paid closer attention because I was gone all day. I hope nothing big happened. Well, sadly, we lost our bowl game yesterday against Georgia Tech, and I was hoping we could carry the momentum that we had from beating Louisville. My apologies, Daryl. But
that was you out there?
Anyway, I'm still proud of our football team. We've advanced light years just in one season, and the recruits are still. I've heard wind of there may be up to 3 more recruits that are looking to sign with the Cats, which is going to present an interesting situation because I think we're about out of scholarships. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And our women, I believe they lost to Tennessee today. That was a road game. And the men haven't played since Thursday night, but we pretty much destroyed Ole Miss as they debuted their new arena. So that's what's going on as best I can tell you.
Yeah, it was as far as the football game goes yesterday. Disappointing. Not one of our better games, but to finish 7-6, considering how the season started and the progress we made, I think as most UK fans would agree, a pretty good season and a lot to build on for next year. Heather, you do have a voice when it comes to UK sports. Add real quick to Michelle's take.
Yeah, especially in regards to the bowl game. And I actually did a segment with Daryl on her show last week about this. I said for Kentucky to win this game, that they were going to have to continue to play well on the offensive line, and that Steven Johnson was going to have to play like he did against Louisville, meaning he can't just be serviceable. He's going to have to be able to throw and move the ball down the field. Guess what? Neither one of those happened. And I have to be honest, I was a little surprised about the offensive line. They allowed Steven Johnson to be under pressure more than I can remember in any other game. And we never really got into a flow. We did have a hard time, except maybe in the last quarter, when we pulled within 8 points, I think, moving the ball. So, I was a little surprised, but, again, I'm happy with where this team is going. I'm happy with the recruiting tidbits we've been hearing. I think Stoops and company are going to have an even better season next year, and I don't think anybody should be disappointed.
Fair take.
Kevin, I did forget one big thing that did happen last night after the game, and that was that Boone Williams declared for the NFL draft.
I was getting ready to mention that. Your take, Michelle. Good move on his part?
I think it's absolutely a smart move on his part, especially at his position. Running backs have a remarkably short life in the NFL, and strike while the iron is hot if you can. So I wish him well. I think he did a remarkable job while he was at UK, and I believe that he was instrumental in encouraging some other high-quality recruits to come to UK, and I've got nothing but respect for him and wish him very well.
Yeah, Boone Williams, definitely a huge talent for the school, for the program. During his time there. So, yeah, that one, I was a little iffy on him making the move. I don't, for the record, Heather, I don't see him being drafted on the first day. I think the first day is like, the first 2 or 3 rounds, or I guess 3 rounds. And I don't see him, I see him as a 4th round probably at best, but you look at someone like Dak Prescott who can get drafted in the 4th round, and, not to say that that's what's going to happen with Boone, but yeah,
and honestly, I'll throw out a hot take. I could see John Toth getting drafted before him, because you have a lot of NFL teams right now that have a need, especially for offensive linemen. My team, hello, Mike Brown, if you're listening, he's a really good center. I wouldn't mind seeing him in Cincinnati, but I just think based on, the needs that some of the NFL teams have, I wouldn't be shocked to see Toth go higher than him.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go to Daryl. Daryl, you cover University of Louisville sports. Good football season, from top to bottom. You have the Heisman Trophy winner. The last few games didn't go per se as probably most fans would have hoped, but I know you, Daryl, see a lot of positives from this past season.
Yeah, like you said, the past 24 hours, the state of the University of Louisville, I just think about the new year, over the weekend, and you reflect on the year and look forward to something better happening in 2017. So just over the past 24 hours, I've just been thinking about this period of time in Louisville's history. Like, just think about 2016 as a whole. The basketball team, I got the news that they wouldn't play in the March Madness tournament this year. And that broke a lot of fans' hearts, including myself. So, not a good start. And then we lose, one of our biggest fans, Muhammad Ali. And then it's just this huge political year that definitely plays part in Louisville's as a program there being in the city, because when you change governors, you as we've seen, finances have been shaken up. And for the people that say politics don't have places in sports, that's completely not true, because like I said, funding goes in different directions. We've seen our president step down or be fired and get an interim president for a little bit. So Louisville's kind of lacking leadership And this after December graduation, that was when the interim president sat down and said that, he's not going to take that position. So right now there's not leadership with Louisville as a whole, program, universities. And talking about the games, the athletic side yesterday, you got that, like you mentioned, the last 3 games Louisville dropped. I don't think this year people will remember this year as such as that they lost the last 3 games. It'll be remembered that Lamar won the Heisman. It was the program's first Heisman Trophy winner. So, you got I know I'll remember it that way. And it'll also be remembered as the year that Louisville beat Kentucky basketball and Indiana basketball. So that was fun.
Yeah. Daryl, I have a question for you because of something that I heard yesterday during a game. And I'll be honest with you, I actually thought it was really unfair. There was an announcer, and it might have been during the Clemson game, to be honest with you, last night. There was one of the announcers, I guess, had a vote for the Heisman Trophy. And he had made a comment that he thought Clemson's quarterback should have won the Heisman over Lamar Jackson. And he pointed out the inconsistent play of, I guess, Jackson the last few games. But really, if you ask me, I think it was more or less the whole team, not just him. I thought it was a little unfair for this announcer, to come in after the fact and say, I don't basically think that kid should have won the Heisman Trophy. Have you heard anybody in the Louisville fan base talk about that? It seems like to me that would have been a big deal. I just thought it was kind of disrespectful.
Oh, absolutely. And you even heard Deshaun Watson say that, he thought he was still the best player in college football. But, those conversations are going to come up just like the conversation of who else could possibly win the Heisman Trophy because all season long, or at the beginning, the first half, it was the Lamar Jackson show. So basically the conversation turned to who's going to take it from him, who's going to come from behind and steal the trophy from Lamar. As far as these last 3 games and why people are saying he doesn't deserve this or that, we've heard, this award is a regular season award. Anybody that gets into the postseason, and now that we've got the expanded playoff, that's extra games and just an unfair platform to wait that long. Like the Heisman Trophy presentation is over when the season is over. So when I watched that game yesterday against LSU, just absolutely no fun to watch. Just like watching Louisville basketball against Virginia. It was the Lamar Jackson show because he was the only guy I saw out there. And I think he felt that too. And the offensive line didn't show up. And, in the group I was watching with, that was the conversation. I can't wait to hear how many people say Lamar doesn't deserve the Heisman because of that performance. But as amazing as Lamar is, he can't block for himself. So that point is moot.
All right. Well, nice segue. Let me go into our topics. Our first shot, and then we'll start with Michele. College football playoffs got underway last night. Alabama beat Washington 24-7. Clemson absolutely destroyed Ohio State 31-0, handing Urban Meyer his first shutout in like 15 years. Michele, what was your overall take with the games yesterday?
Well, first of all, with Bama and Washington, I have determined that if Alabama plays their best game, they're going to destroy you. And if Alabama plays a bad game, they're still going to beat you. That's just how they've been all year. They weren't at the top of their game yesterday by any stretch of the imagination, but they performed like a championship team has to perform. They grounded out and they got that win. As for the nightcap, I think I summed it up in my tweet last night that seemed to be fairly popular. I'm still getting retweets on it, and I was like,
I saw that. That was a good one.
Who lost this Ohio State game? Who just lost it? Was it just Ohio State, or was it the Ohio State? So that was just 10 kinds of ugly for Ohio State. I really did not see that coming. I thought that would be a much more competitive game, but kudos to Clemson. I mean, they just took it to them, took them to the woodshed, and you almost had to question, how did Ohio State get in the playoffs? And you look at the body of work and you understand it, but when you looked at that game last night, it was kind of like, wow, chopped liver. And I'm really not an Ohio State fan at all, so I rather enjoyed it.
Daryl, your summary.
Well, I mean, first of all, did anybody really think Ohio State belonged in this, was it Fiesta Bowl to begin with?
Yeah, I think the argument, as Michele put it, was their body of work. They did have really good quality wins outside of the conference, and what was their one loss was, what was it, in overtime? It was late. It was I mean, there was the argument, but Clemson clearly was the better team.
Right, but my huge takeaway from the college football playoff is, why did we get rid of the BCS if we're just going to treat it the same way? I'm over seeing Alabama. I know they're great. Everyone understands that. I'm over seeing Clemson out there, and Ohio State the same. I was obviously rooting for Washington because I want to see a shakeup of some sort. But there's just so many bowls that people are bored. I mean, when you have a losing team playing in a bowl game, what does that say? I mean, and then we have players that are sitting out of these bowl games, just looking ahead to the next season. And that's another thing. Coaches, I've heard, are deeming bowl games, the beginning of the next season. Louisville didn't get off on a good start. They got a lot to think about in the off season. But I just don't know where the hype is about this playoff one we've got.
And I'll turn to Heather now. One of the next little bullet points that I want on this topic was that, are the playoffs hurting the bowls, the other bowl games? Because you got, as Daryl mentioned, you got players who have elected to sit out these bowl games to concentrate on their pro careers. And then you got some teams that look like they're just not into it. Now, of course, Heather, what drives this is money. And as long as the money is going to be there for these bowl games, which I think the latest count was there was 40-some bowl games. And to Daryl's point, there's teams with losing records that have to fill the last few bowl games. But
yeah, and even Nick Saban said, earlier this year, and it was after, I believe, it was after last year's national championship game, that the current format between the how the playoff is set up and the bowl format is not, it can't coexist together. I mean, essentially what you have happening is between, the conference championship game, then you have, your semifinals game, and then your championship game. You have teams that are extending to play 15 games just to get to the championship game. Then you have teams traveling all over the place. And specifically last year, his team where did they go? Atlanta, Arlington, and I think Glendale. Yeah. I mean, and his point with the traveling was not only really because of the team, but it's hard on the fans. I mean, it's really hard if you're a football fan to go follow your team to all three destinations. And when fans can't spend the money, the stadiums don't fill up. And by the way, if you go back and read there's been numerous articles written about this. A lot of these lower tier bowl games, where you might have your 5 and 7 or 6 and 6 teams, their attendance, their viewership, it's all down. I mean, it's not good for any of these people. And these fans for these teams are not traveling to the game. Now, with the exception of, let's say, for an example, the Kentucky game yesterday, Kentucky, the fans are excited about the program. We had, it looked like a home game in Jacksonville. There was, and we're traditionally a fan base that's going to travel. But I think when you get into some of these smaller schools that go to these smaller bowl games, they don't have the big fan bases that are going to travel. And to be honest with you, I don't think people are sitting at home watching them. Well, they're clearly not, because, the viewership is down. And I think eventually what you're going to see happen is you're going to see some of these lower tier bowl games go away. I mean, essentially because they're not going to be able to afford to do them, or they're not going to be money makers. And Saban has said this, and I know other coaches have said it too. You essentially are going to have to start trimming the fat. I think you're going to see it eventually, because we all know that the playoff system is not going to go away anytime soon. So I would expect in the next few seasons you'll see the number dwindle a little bit.
Go ahead, Heather, or Daryl, if you got a take.
Yeah, and to follow follow up on what Heather's saying, and for Louisville fans, just think about this football game that we have at 11 a.m. on New Year's Eve. Think about the half of the fan base that traveled to Indy to see Louisville in the basketball game. I think I saw a few things from the Citrus Bowl saying they expected more from Louisville fans and this and that. But, I mean, like Heather said, the distance and the timing, Louisville fans bought basketball tickets months in advance. I believe the game sold out in an hour. And then we find out this bowl thing. So, it's kind of like, pulling you in different directions literally to be a fan.
Now, I know, Michelle, you got a thought, but hold on a second, just for Daryl's point. The basketball game has obviously been scheduled for months, maybe over a year, whatever, and then you got the football bowl game. Now, is that something where the school should have said, do we want to do this to our fan base? Because ultimately, the program could decline the invite, but the reality is the flipping money that the bowl game paid, that trumps everything. But to your point, you put a lot of fans in a situation, because actually the game was played simultaneously, right? Wasn't the basketball game early too?
Yeah, they overlapped. I had two TVs set up so I could enjoy.
I did see that. So, Michelle, finish up this topic.
Well, I think your question was, are the playoffs hurting the bowl games? And I think pretty much what Heather said, it's the absolute ridiculous number of bowl games that's hurting the bowl games. It's almost like the participation ribbon thing has gone in there. Let's give everybody a bowl game. You get one. And it used to be more meaningful. And I think if you went back and as Heather said, trim the fat and get down and have meaningful bowl games and make it a little more difficult to get in there, then you would get the excitement back, you would get the attendance up, and you would see a whole lot fewer players sitting out.
I totally agree. The response, well, I'll just say the NCAA does not do a good job of responding or reacting to the moment, if you will. And I don't see them, turning away opportunities for money. In my world, no 6-6 team should go to a bowl game. That means you're average. You're an average team. Don't care. You started basically, you finished where you started at, even number. So,
well, Kevin, but other than the money, which is the one draw for the schools to accept the bowls, it's that 4 weeks of extra practice. And it's really huge. Hard for a school to turn that down.
That's a good point. And, is that something else that has to be looked at? But those are all good points. Let's go shot number 2. With Lane Kiffin and Charlie Strong accepting coaching positions in the state of Florida. Try to look at my little graphic here. Check out this. These are the coaches who currently are coaching in the state now, or will be. You got obviously Florida and Florida State, Miami, McElwain, Fisher, and Rick. But you got also Charlie Strong, Butch Davis at FIU, Lane Kiffin at Florida Atlantic. The hotbed of football recruits from the South is the state of Florida. A lot of schools, Louisville being one. Kentucky has their few that they get from the state. I'm gonna start with you, Daryl. Does the number of coaches now, in some case, these are some high-profile coaches with Strong and Kiffin getting, now granted, you're talking South Florida, Florida Atlantic, FIU, but does that change the dynamic of schools like Louisville and the players that maybe Kentucky get that, now our programs are going to be impacted by these new coaches?
Right. Well, when you showed the topic, I kind of got, my mind started racing. I got a little excited. The first thing that came to mind was, Florida can't even keep their coaches in Florida. I don't think much recruiting is going to change. I think that you bring in those names, that's what is going to bring your recruits there to the South Floridas and the Florida Atlantics. Like, for instance, Charlie Strong being at Texas, players weren't going to there solely because of Charlie Strong. It's to Texas. So, for instance, for them being down there, I think it'll be interesting to see. And then, of course, there's always those other players that don't want to stay home. They want to go away and live on a campus solely on their own, away from their family for a little bit. Maybe come back, and the end goal is to come back where you started. You don't forget where you came from. But another one of those names you mentioned, Lane Kiffin. He hasn't been anywhere long enough for me to think that his recruiting is going to impact an area. But that goes back to coaches like Jimbo Fisher, who's been there a while. Everybody else is kind of on this new stint, really. Right. How did they let Lamar Jackson get out of Florida? How did they let Teddy Bridgewater get out of Florida?
That's a good point. Yeah.
And
now,
go ahead.
Let me add what I want to now. And I'll go to with Florida, Florida State, Miami. Those schools, programs. There's a big three in the state. It's now by adding the other guys. Does those 3-star players that Louisville, Kentucky, a lot of the other schools get a hold of because they don't land at the big three in the state? Do they now now want to play for someone like Strong or Kiffin? Granted, Kiffin has not been the most successful head coach, but he's got a lot in 3 years at Alabama. He got a lot of exposure just because of the program. So that's my opinion.
Just to touch on this, I really wanted to touch on Coach Strong and the merry-go-round of his career in the state of Florida. Obviously, he was at Florida for a long time. Florida didn't give him that chance to become the head coach after Urban Meyer. I think they're shooting themselves in the foot after that move, because I think he would have had success there if he wanted those guys to come to Florida. That was a big thing, I think. And now that you're seeing him go back now to South Florida, after a coach, it was Willie Taggart, who was from Western Kentucky, who Taggart has had relations with Lane Kiffin in recruiting world, where they were all kinds of NCAA violations at Tennessee. So it's just this big merry-go-round of conversations with one another. And in the state of Florida, last year in the bowl games, I think your major schools, not one of them won. That turned around this season. I think Florida plays tomorrow, and then South Florida beat South Carolina Thursday night. And I saw the headline for that was, Will Muschamp in South Carolina versus future Charlie Strong South Florida Bulls. So that was kind of interesting.
And Charlie Strong was on the sideline as well.
Yeah.
So
after Taggart up and left and went ahead to go to Oregon all of a sudden.
Yeah. Heather, jump in.
So, and I believe this is since 2012, there are 5 top states who produce the most NFL caliber talent. It's Florida, Georgia, Ohio, Texas, and California. And while everybody looks on paper, you look at all these names, okay, and you say, wow, on paper, they should get all the recruits. They should be able to recruit in-home and take these maybe 3-star kids that might come to a Louisville or Kentucky. But like what Daryl said, some of these coaches they don't stay in places very long. And they've had an issue. Let's take Charlie Strong for an example. He went to Texas. What did he do there? He got fired. Okay. If you're a 3-star talent in the state of Florida and you're looking at the Lane Kiffin and the Charlie Strongs because you didn't get an offer from one of the big 3 programs, are you going to want to play for a coach that A, doesn't have a reputation for sticking around long, and B, why would you want to go to a program where you're going to get killed by some of these other bigger schools? Why wouldn't you go to a program like Louisville or like Kentucky and try to not only make an immediate impact in good football programs, but you're going to have a chance to not only, I guess, kind of compete against higher level talent without getting your ass kicked every day, but you're going to have a chance to get exposed in some of these larger conferences. Right. And this is the beauty with, by the way, people or teams like Kentucky who are part of the SEC that now have the SEC network. They consistently get exposure to because let's face it, a lot of these kids that go play Division I football, what do they want to do? They want to go to the NFL. Why not go to a program where you're going to get that exposure? Now, the beauty of the NFL is obviously, there are teams, there are programs that have draft picks, from UC smaller schools. They have kids that do move on and play, but a majority of the active NFL players all come from the bigger conferences and they come from the bigger programs. And it's going to be really hard if you're a 3-star guy, if you're going to FIU or South Florida, maybe not South Florida so much, but, Florida Atlantic or, so on and so forth. It's going to be really hard if you're a 3-star guy to go there and play and get noticed and make it to the next step.
Okay. Good points. So, Michele, what Heather and Daryl are saying is that these new influx of coaches in the state are not going to impact recruiting for, schools like Louisville, Kentucky. Finish this topic.
Well, I think what it comes down to, and what we have seen at Kentucky as an example, it's the assistant coaches that are out there building all the relationships. It's our assistant coaches that have all these inroads to Ohio, and it's the same thing with what we're starting to pick up in Florida. And I think it comes down to relationships with coaching staffs more than it comes down to the head coach, quite frankly. I don't see it having a huge impact.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's just to let everybody know. Just because I asked a question doesn't mean I'm thinking that they are going to have an impact. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, and it might maybe initially, but again, the point is that some of these coaches, they haven't been successful at bigger programs, and it doesn't matter what the staff is that you bring in. I think kids are going to look at, okay, if I want to go to the NFL, I want to play for a program where I'm A, going to make an impact, and B, I'm going to get noticed. And I'm not so sure these kids in playing for some of these smaller schools will get that. They maybe at South Florida they would have a better chance, but some of these other smaller schools, I don't think so. And I would, by the way, have a really hard time going in to play for a coach like Lane Kiffin, who he recruits a phenomenal class, but then 2 weeks later he turns around and takes another job. Lane Kiffin's not going to be at that program very long. So
probably longer.
History
always repeats itself.
You're right.
And I have
right.
something after what Heather said on that topic.
Do you?
Think about what we do. We're media. Think about Florida as a whole, all these smaller schools, the media members that are being drawn into each direction of these schools. Louisville and Kentucky is it for the state. You're either covering red or blue. There's not gonna be so much coverage of the South Florida Bulls as there are the Gators. So if that's not the route that these players are gonna get, they're gonna choose elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a good point too. Now I will finish this topic by saying Charlie Strong may be the exception to every bit of the conversation we had because of his Florida ties and because I think he was totally humbled after Texas. So him coming back to the States, I think he's gonna do pretty well at South Florida. So, and I wish him well. He's a good guy.
And I think if he does do well at South Florida, it's going to be taking those players from the big players from Florida and Florida State. Because think about it, these kids are football fans. They grew up either one or the other. If the one they wanted to go to doesn't give them an offer, but Florida State does versus them being a Gator fan, do you think they would take that offer? Change their loyalty?
There you go. All right. Okay. Shot number 3. If there's one school that Kentucky, Louisville can probably, call it truce and go after or dislike, it's Duke. Recently, you had the Grayson Allen trip gate, whatever you want to call it. Third time's a charm, I guess, because in the last little over a season, if you will, he had the third experience where he clearly trips extends his leg to trip up the player. Elon, I guess that's what was Elon, and got teed up. But what was more alarming is the reaction once he got to the bench. And that aside, it took this third time for Coach K, who is in a lot of the, with the media, a lot of the media looked at as, the end all be all of college coaching. It took this third time for Coach K to step in and do something. Suspended him indefinitely. The first game of the suspension, they got their asses handed to him by Virginia Tech. So I don't know how long that suspension is going to last. But with this suspension also came stripping his captains, whatever. He was one of co-captains, whatever. Well, let me start with Heather. Usually it's shame on, the first time something happens, shame on me. The second time something happens, shame on you for letting it happen a second time. But 3 times, Coach K cannot get a pass. I mean, this is a mark on him.
First and foremost, when I saw Grayson Allen's reaction after he was taken out of the game and teed up, I thought, you know what a little bitch. I mean, seriously, he is a spoiled brat, and because he wasn't reprimanded the first 2 times by his coach that apparently shit gold, he continues the bad behavior. But you know what was more alarming to me, and I never call this stuff out. I never do. Anybody who follows me on Twitter or has listened to me in this show or Michelle's show or the 2 times I've done Daryl's show, I never call out the hypocrisy when it comes to athletes who are African American and athletes who are Caucasian. Well, this time I did, and I even tweeted it out because it was blatantly obvious. I could not believe, not just with fans, but certain media members who stuck up for Grayson Allen. Like he's obviously got some anger issues. He needs help. He's just a kid. No. He's not a kid. He's 21 years old. Okay. And when I look at guys like Vontaze Burfict, who's a linebacker for the Cincinnati Bengals, who, if he looks at somebody wrong, he's a thug, and he's a thug not only with fans, but he's a thug in the media. Why does a 21-year-old white guy who plays for Duke get a pass, who he is clearly being a shithead, and a guy like Vontaze Burfict, which I don't know where you guys fall with your opinion on him. He's a hell of a player. Yes, he does boneheaded stuff on the field, but I think there's also other times too where he's unjustly criticized. Why does Burfict not get a pass, but Grayson Allen does? And I saw somebody tweeted to me the night that I said that on Twitter. One's a kid, one's in college, blah, blah, blah. No, one's 21 and one is 26. They're both adults. They know the difference between a dirty play and not a dirty play. But you know what? I don't see Burfict on the sideline when he gets fined throwing Gatorade throwing Gatorade containers and kicking stuff over. He might do it in the locker room. I don't know. But I mean, I just could not believe the amount of people, especially in the media, who stuck up for Grayson Allen. And I don't understand why it's okay to villainize a guy like Burfict, and it's not okay to do it to Grayson Allen, who clearly a big
Well, I've got the
douchebag.
answer for you. I've got the answer for you, Heather.
Well,
let me answer it this way, and I'm gonna let Michelle jump in. God forbid if that was a Calipari player or a Patino player, because of how the media do take their shots at Cal, and the media does take their shots at Patino because of the program that the scandal, whatever. Neither Patino or Calipari would not have gotten a third up to 3 chances to do something. Michelle.
Well, that's the whole thing. I don't think it was so much giving Grayson Allen a pass as it was the media giving Coach K a pass, and it's totally ridiculous because if he had been handling things correctly, as he keeps telling us, then this would not have happened a second time, much less a third. And I'm not sure if it's – actually, I think I do know what it is. I told you I'd never underestimate my ability to get what I want. I think it's just like the excessive, unbelievable arrogance of North Carolina, the way that they go around for 20 years of academic fraud, and they try to turn back on the NCAA. How dare you keep looking at us? What's wrong with you? We're doing things the Carolina way, and Duke gets a pass on every single thing because of Coach K. And it's that Tobacco Road arrogance. I'm over it. I'm sick of it. I can't stand either program. And Coach K, like I said, that thing, I'm not going to bow down to media pressure. I've handled things correctly. I'll keep handling things correctly. Bull. You haven't handled anything. And isn't it amazing that 12 hours later, suddenly he magically gets suspended? And that wasn't from media pressure. I mean, when Jay Villas and Seth Greenberg are on air during a Kentucky game, mind you, the Kentucky-Louisville game, and there's
game, right? Yeah.
What a petulant child! And Grayson Allen's got issues, but I think he has been enabled
and entitled, right?
By his rat-faced coach. Period.
Hold on, Heather. Let me get Daryl in now. Daryl, for one of the things that I thought needed to have happened, and it couldn't have come from a better person, was Jay Williams that night. I think because it was game day, or they were right. It was a Louisville, Kentucky, where they were there at Yum, and Jay Williams was so fucking critical. I mean, he threw out the notion that he's surprised that no player has not reacted in a physical way back towards him, and he was just ripping. I thought that was so huge for a former Coach K guy, for a, arguably one of the all-time great Duke players to make that statement. It needed to have been said from somebody like Williams. But go ahead, Daryl.
Was it that night, the Louisville Kentucky game, that he tripped that third time? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Louisville fans are already familiar with the Grayson Allen antics. Last year,
right.
in February,
right.
It was Ray Spalding who tripped by him. And it's just like one of those things that when it happens, you're like, I can't believe that I just witnessed that. And me, and everybody's got the eyes on Louisville and Duke. Even Kentucky fans are watching. This is all over the country. People are watching. Kids are watching. And there are, like Heather and everybody else has said, there are people out there who are defending him. Those are the crazy people you shouldn't respond to in that kind of situation. But like we've seen, he's been suspended. His captaincy was taken away. And, I just have this feeling that in 2 weeks when Louisville plays Duke, that he will just miraculously be re-entered into the lineup. So that'll be interesting to see how that falls. But I've also turned Grayson Allen into a verb. So want to use that, you all are welcome to.
A verb.
He's just a douchebag.
This is a guy, Heather, you were talking about the fact that he's not a kid. He's 21. Now, here's my counter to that, is that, he's 21, but he's a 21-year-old kid who appears to have been given a lot of things along the way. Now, not to say he hasn't earned them. You got to have talent to play at Duke. But, 2 times tripping, he's clearly hasn't been accountable for his actions. And I can't imagine the outburst that we saw, Heather, after he got teed up and sent to the bench was the first occurrence, if you will. This, that switch didn't just flip. That's probably his personality, his nature. So again, I'll throw out Coach K. This is a mark on his jacket. How big of a mark, dark of a mark, who knows? And it won't matter. It's like one of the stars in the sky. But he let this go on this long. So.
For over a year.
Yeah, and let me be clear. I'm not giving Coach K a pass either. He is an enabler, and he has had, until recently, until the third time, he has made Grayson Allen not take accountability for his reckless actions. You're talking about a guy who is purposely tripping players they're going to the basket or just running down the floor, and he's going to hurt someone. And there's going to come a time where he, it maybe not now, but, he's lucky there wasn't a time, that he didn't trip a kid who had NBA aspirations. I know that, but like serious NBA aspirations, like somebody, like he was going to get drafted or, if he would have done that to a kid that was probably going to get drafted, he would have gotten punched in the face, I believe. And I'm with Jay Billis. I'm kind of surprised that he hasn't yet. But the thing is that when I was talking about media members that night, I saw several, and I think, Michelle, one of them was Jeff Goodman, and if it wasn't Jeff, somebody will correct me, who stuck up for Grayson Allen and kind of like, he's a misguided kid, he needs, and I'm going, no, he knows what he's doing is wrong. And by the way, his coach, and this is why people outside of Tobacco Road do not respect Coach K, is because he continually lets this stuff go on, and he's largely got a pass. And I do say kudos to guys like Jay Billis and Seth Greenberg, who immediately came out and said he needs to be suspended. Coach K should have never let this happen. This is you're right, Kevin. Coach K doesn't get a pass. He's just as bad, as far as not getting the situation under control the first time. And it kind of also makes you wonder, why didn't he address it the first time? He may come back and, or even the second. And I'm not just saying, it's an in-house issue, I address it, in the locker room. No, he purposely tried to hurt a player and could have really hurt a player. 1, 2, 3 times now. Why did it take so long for him to react? And you know what? He gets any scrutiny that Coach K gets for the handling of the situation. He 1,000% deserves it. I am not giving him a pass at all. I think he was terrible for letting this go on, and I'm not sure how you would punish him for this. But
Here's two ways to look at this, and I'll as we'll end this shot and go to the next one. Either Coach K, during private time with Grayson. After the second, we'll give the first one a pass. The second trip.
Mm-hmm. Oh, of course you give the first one against Ray Spalding a pass.
No, actually I didn't realize what it was but all right, or even the first. But clearly after the second, if I'm Coach K, and one, I would think he sets Grayson down and says, "Don't do this again. Do not do it again." So either if he did say it, clearly he didn't respond to it. I don't think to me, if Coach K gave him a direction or a directive to say, "Don't let this happen again," I don't think it would have happened again. Therefore, I don't think it ever, was given to, Coach K didn't address with him. That's my take.
But Kevin, you've got to keep in mind what Coach K does. And Aaron Torres, when he was on our show last year at the NCAA tournament, he was at the region where Duke was playing, and he went to see their open practice. And the last thing they did for the last 20 minutes of their practice was Coach K having them practice their flopping. 20 minutes, and that's a standard practice for them. So he didn't tell him to stop because, like I said, Duke gets away with everything. The officials favor Duke. And I mean, that's not just somebody that doesn't like Duke. You hear other media members, a few of them will actually talk about Duke gets every call. So Kay's like, we don't have to be better. We can flop. We can get the extra free throws. We can trip. I can tell him I'm handling it internally. I'm golden. And as whichever one of you all said it, he shits go bricks.
Okay, so, nice visual to end that shot. Shot number 4. I'll start with Michele. UConn women's, University of Connecticut women's basketball are on one of these crazy winning streaks. I think this is the second one in the last 10 years that they've been on this insane winning streak. Clearly, Michele, UConn is a level above every other women's program out there. Is this good for women's basketball to know that if you're not UConn, you all are basically playing for second place?
Well, I think that's a little bit inaccurate because because as their coach said, I mean, they're one play away sometimes from, if you look at the film, if we make a foul one play sooner, we've got somebody fouled out. It's a whole different ball game. If they have injuries, whole different ball game. And what you have now, at least as far as UConn games are concerned, no matter who they're playing, people are tuning in to watch that because they want to see someone's going to knock UConn down. And I don't know. I mean, what are you going to do? You're just going to eliminate the sport because you've got one team that's better than everybody else and nobody else should play? I mean, it's totally ridiculous. You never know what's going to happen.
I wasn't suggesting eliminating it. Maybe
you're saying they shouldn't want to play because they're just playing for second place. That's kind of like saying eliminate it.
I'm saying, all right, maybe here's what I would do. Maybe we make the second place trophy like 2 times bigger than the first place trophy.
Oh, good grief, Heaven. Now you're going to little Johnny's parents, and let's give everybody a prize because at least they tried.
Well, that's just it, Daryl. Other schools aren't trying. Well, I'm moving. Let Daryl jump in. Daryl, jump in that because you're not UConn, you are playing for second place right now. How? I get Michele's point where people want to tune in and see if this streak ends, but it's just not going to happen. I don't think anytime soon because they get, McDonald's. The McDonald's, they actually out recruit Kentucky and Duke combined. So, is it fun for you, Daryl, to watch this?
Obviously, I'm not a UConn women's basketball fan or anything, but I do follow the women's team at Louisville, and they're always in the conversation to be right up there, national title contenders. And a couple years ago, we did see them make it to that final game, and that was really exciting because
what
they
was
weren't
the score in that
supposed
final
to.
game? What was the score in that final game?
It was stupid, about a 30-point loss.
Yeah, and that's not a knock on Louisville. That's just,
right. No, I know. It's just that UConn is above and beyond, and and you try to think of the headlines. What are we getting excited for here? And I believe it was either this season or last season that they started doing the quarters in the games rather than the halves, trying to maybe revamp it and then perhaps move that onto the men's game as well. But they just keep trying to come up with these other alternative ways around the norm, and the norm is UConn women's basketball. And of course, there's a few others that are always up there too. That's Notre Dame and South Carolina. Louisville wants to be in that conversation, but defeat is way too big. I don't know what they're gonna do to stop this train, other than to tell Gino he's just too good, and you got to move on to a professional level or something.
Well, obviously that's not going to happen. I don't even know what kind of money, Michele, does Gino make a year? Is it like Gino money?
I'd never looked at his salary because
here, I got it for you right here.
Oh, you did?
According to his contract, it's $10.8 million
per year.
No, let's see.
Oh.
That's over a couple years. It's $2 million a year.
Oh, that's.
And then it casually grows up to 2.4 in that final year. So that's probably 6 years.
Okay. Heather, finish this segment or topic.
You have to, if you're a sports fan, period, you have to appreciate the dominance. I mean, they are year in and year out the team that everyone does seem to be chasing. But I have to tell you, too, as a sports fan, it is a little boring to see UConn consistently always winning. I want to see an upset. But, I don't know how other programs can compete with them. Gino RUM is going to get the best talent coming out of high school. It doesn't matter. He is like John Calipari on steroids times 10 when it comes to women's basketball.
Right.
Everybody wants to play at UConn, but it does kind of seem to always see them win. I mean, I would love for somebody to upset them. I would love a little bit of a shakeup. I will tell you, as far as hurting women's basketball, I mean, it's not hurting UConn. I mean, it's not hurting them. Obviously, they have a successful program. But what it will start hurting, if it hasn't already, it could start hurting viewership for the sport. And now I know it's women's basketball, and let's be honest here, a lot more people don't follow it as much as they do the men's side. It's just the way it is. I enjoy watching basketball all around, so I don't care. But I think if people see the same thing over and over and over and over, they're going to get disinterested. And unfortunately, that's not good. So I don't, if you want to grow the sport, somebody freaking beat UConn. That's all. If you want to grow the sport, you have to, because people are just going to get tired of seeing the same team. They are.
Well, a lot of that changed when Pat Summitt stopped coaching, because she was the one coach that could give Gino a run for his money. And, a lot of people said similar things about Tennessee in the, 80s and 90s when they were just totally dominant. I mean, that yes, they did lose games occasionally, but that was the bar that was set, and that's what everybody was chasing, was to be like Tennessee, and now it's to be like UConn. It's cyclical, and right now they're in a big riding the wave, but I don't think it lasts forever.
I think every other women's basketball coach out there, their recruiting pitch is, let's go beat UConn.
Why not? Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
Because if a player gets offered from UConn, they're going to go there. So if the only other option out there are the ones that aren't getting offered to go to UConn.
That would be a good line. Okay. All right. Let's see. Next shot as we're rounding third and heading for home here. Ladies, thank you for sticking with me. I don't need I told you so, Michele. I can already feel it, though you haven't said it. Resting players. Yeah. I'll start with Daryl. Daryl, when it comes to like all professional sports, and we'll use the NBA. Recently, a lot of headway came about when Cleveland had a road game somewhere, and they kept home, didn't send on the trip. LeBron, Kevin Love, and Kyrie Irving, they all stayed in Cleveland. When is it where, what is the fine line here when it comes to, obviously you got to do what you have to do for your brand, for your program, whatever. But when you got fans who, and it was a kid holding, see, Michele, this is where I'm making a statement before I ask a question. You have a kid holding a sign that said, I came to see LeBron at this game. I was in Memphis, and LeBron's not there. So the ticket price stays the same, which is probably some godly amount per ticket to go see an NBA game. And then once that game rolls around, that you got your family of four there, and you spent $400 at least probably on tickets, and you get the B team from Cleveland.
Yeah.
What's now? Go ahead. From a fan, just there's my take.
Yeah, I got you. You just called it. You just said basically where I was going to start. That these players, these people, fans aren't going just to see an NBA game. They're going to be in the room with LeBron James. They want to breathe the same air as LeBron James. And like you mentioned about the ticket prices not changing, they do change for those names. I mean, you could go see a $12 game at the Pacers, watch them play the Grizzlies or whatever, or when LeBron and the Cavs, and that's what we say in the media, LeBron and the Cavs. So
I know. I hate that.
I know. And I'm not with it because, but this is what that we've kind of painted here. We've kind of put this all together into what it is. And I can't even believe that they didn't even go on the trip. I don't know what that says. It doesn't say, teamwork to me. If LeBron's not even going to be there to support his backup because he chooses not to play, and sometimes with those, cautionary not going to play or, game time decisions, is that often doctor recommended, or is that sometimes personal players deciding, hey, I need a break? There are a lot of games. And wanting to rest for the most important ones makes sense. But a part of me, to prevent this sort of thing, I think, we know in advance which pitchers are pitching on which night in the MLB. And we can kind of base our decision on which game we want to go to on that. So that's like one of the preventative measures I think that could be taken. But for game time decisions, you just never know. So I'm not entirely sure how they're going to address that. But I think not even going to another on the road with your teammates is telling in itself, and it doesn't scream teamwork to me.
That's a good point. Heather, I think in this case, with the example I'm giving with Cleveland, is that this was a back-to-back night or games where they played, I guess, in Cleveland, or they played somewhere, and then the next night they had the game at Memphis. Well, I guess it was Cleveland and Memphis, and they just kept the big three home. They did. So again, I do see it from the perspective is that you're trying to save some wear and tear on your guys, but with the NBA and most pro sports, part of the lure of the fans is marketing these superstars, at coming to an arena near you. What's your take?
Well, I think this concept, if I remember correctly, was started by Popovich in San Antonio when he had a team full of older players, including Tim Duncan. And, I think they played, 82 games in an NBA season? So I get maybe if you have older guys who have been in the league for years, maybe needing a rest day now and again. And if it comes against a team where you can sit and have your star player or player sit because, you still think or believe the game is winnable and that, hey, look, they've been grinding out. It's late in the season. We need a break because we need to gear up for the playoffs. I guess I'm okay with it from that perspective. But what I find alarming is you have teams, and you know what? Stan Van Gundy, who's the Pistons coach, just talked about this like a week or two ago. You have teams like Memphis did this with Gasol. 4 games into the season and he's sitting? Why? He's already tired? Are you kidding me? And that's the kind of stuff I don't get. And I think what's starting to happen, and obviously it's different for every organization and every coaching staff, is that you see some of these players like, oh, well, this organization rests these guys. I'm going to take advantage of it and say I need a rest day too, or so on and so forth. And I think that, there's a line between being late in the season and you've played multiple back-to-back games and maybe having a rest night versus, doing it right from the onset. And it is unfair to some of these fans who spend, $400 or $500 to go to these games. And I guess, like Stan Van Gundy said, look, my guys are paid millions of dollars to play 82 games a year. They're going to play because we need to win.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm waiting for to happen, and it may have, because to be honest with you, I don't pay attention a ton to the NBA during the regular season. I generally only sit down and watch during, the playoffs. I'm waiting for a team to rest guys, and it costs them a game that they maybe should have won or needed to win in hindsight.
That's not going to happen.
Just to make a playoff.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if it does happen, that's fine. If it doesn't, I don't get this whole, these guys again are played, they're paid all this money. I don't understand, sitting this early in the season. I get the original thought behind it, but I think now people are just flat taking advantage of it. And unfortunately, it does hurt your product. If you're marketing that you have the best NBA players and they're coming to a city near you, I mean, it is disappointing for fans. And I don't know how you address it. Do you shorten the NBA season? Do you find teams, or find players rather for resting too much? I don't know how this works. So,
well, these are coaches, quote unquote coaches' decisions. Now, however, Michele, I think when you're talking someone like LeBron could probably say, coach, GM, owner, I really would like to just stay home tonight. I think the rest of the team can have my back. LeBron is, and probably a handful of players, Michele, are the exception to that. But again, if you're a fan and a family, whatever, shelling out the bucks to see an advertised product, I mean, what's your take?
Well, my take is, first off, I mean, how many games a year do these players need to rest? And if that number might be 10, it might be 12. Shorten the NBA season and then get your butts out there and play. You're given a contract to play, let's say, 82 games, but then they sit out so many because they have to rest. That is becoming the reason that the NBA, at least in my estimation, is becoming a whole lot less popular than it was. Just like Heather, I don't pay any attention until the playoffs because for the most part, even the games they're playing in, it seems like 80% of the time they're just in cruise control. I mean, you've got the younger players, we see Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Davis. Some of those are trying to make their mark. I mean, they're out there giving and doing like ridiculously entertaining things. And I love to watch their games, but I don't pay attention to where they are in the standings. But what the NBA has become with the players of LeBron's caliber, most of the all-stars, if you will, they're a bunch of spoiled millionaires. And, I miss the days when I was growing up and watching the NBA in the 70s and 80s. I mean, these guys went out and they fought night after night, and it was every player from the best to the worst. They were there every game. And I just think it's totally ludicrous that, especially as Heather said, at this point in the season, are you kidding me? You're already too tired. It's a joke. And the NBA is going to end up paying financially because the fans are going to get sick of it and they're going to stop shelling out the money. And then they're going to find out their product is a whole lot less valuable. Everybody loses.
Yeah, and one other thing real quick, Kevin, that I want to point out, because I saw somebody say this on Twitter, was that, people brought up baseball players often sometimes get rest days too. Baseball's a little different, and I think people are comparing apples and oranges with that. You have 162 games, and those guys do play back-to-back games. I mean, so on occasion, if they have one or two rest days during the season, I completely get it. I know Joey Votto for the Reds takes them. Brandon Phillips takes them. To me, it's different. And so for folks trying to compare this to the baseball, it's completely different. Yeah. And I saw a couple people say that, and I'm like, no, guys, this is completely different. Baseball, you are literally playing every single day, it seems like. So, yeah, I mean, this early in the season, I don't get the rest. Maybe later in the season, I could see a day. But, yeah, it's fortunate for the fans.
Yeah, and not to mention during the baseball season, that heat index is, good God.
A lot different, yeah.
Yeah. All right, ladies, you stuck with me longer than I had planned. I've got my final shot for you for my lovelies tonight. I get to start with, who am I starting with? Heather. Heather, Michele, then Daryl. Starting with Heather, give me your favorite sport moment of 2016.
You know what? I had a lot to choose from, and I guess I'm going to go with this one. I think it was Cleveland coming back this year. Speaking of the NBA, down 3-1 against a Golden State Warriors team who was loaded and on paper should have probably won in 4 games. I mean, I know Cleveland has LeBron and has a great supporting cast around him, but I mean, Golden State on paper, they were so much talent on that roster. For Cleveland to come back, as they did, and for LeBron to essentially just dominate and take over, the games that they won, just completely, it was really cool to see. And Cleveland went from mistake by the lake to a championship town. And, kudos to LeBron who's from Akron, 1-1 for the home team. And, that's something that we're probably not going to see. That doesn't happen often. Besides this year, has there been any other team that came back 3 games to 1, or was Cleveland the first?
And in the NBA,
I think it was the first one. That was one of the major stats from. I think that was one of the major stats.
Yeah, that never happens. It doesn't happen. It's hard
to win on the road. It is hard to win
absolutely.
On the road.
Yeah, I think to me, that was one of the biggest feats I have seen in sports history. It literally was, because they were seemingly outmatched, a little bit on the roster. But I'll tell you what, I have never seen a basketball player besides Michael Jordan, obviously, and some of the other greats, like LeBron James. He just completely changed the game. And, his supporting cast stepped up, and the fact that they were able to come back and win that series just blew my mind. I was on vacation when they won. So, you know what? That to me was the biggest moment.
All right. Michele, your fave.
Well, what I had originally picked turns out that was what you had picked, so I'll have to go to something different.
Whoa. You mean to tell me that of all the moments in 2016, you had the same one as Heather?
No, as you. Because, we're both Cowboys fans.
Oh, well, no, I'm not going to say anything. So if you want to go there, you can go.
No, because I've already got my backup plan going, and I can justify my backup plan. Before you think that I'm just too much of a blue-colored glasses person here, and I'm picking a Kentucky moment, I have to pick Kentucky beating Louisville and in football, and that's for several reasons. Because first of all, you just look at Kentucky football history. It's not any kind of great national secret that we've sucked for most of our time as a football program. We occasionally have a good season, but it's usually followed up by 25 years of ugliness. And especially after the start that we had this season, losing the first 2 games, and we just wanted to make a bowl game, and we got the bowl eligibility when we beat Austin Peay. But we had to go to Papa John Stadium, and we had to play the number 11 ranked team in the country. We had to play against a quarterback who was assumed to, and of course did get awarded the Heisman Trophy. And Louisville was a 28-point favorite. And I think, if not the team, at least their fans were saying we can name our score against Kentucky because Kentucky's that bad. And what Kentucky did, and I raise this as my favorite moment because nationally, the attention that drew, and in a positive way to Kentucky football, which is so rare. And I think it really has helped us turn a corner. And I know that I was smiling. I had commented on this, that, 8 hours after that game ended, I realized my face was hurting, and I couldn't understand why my face was so sore. And I realized I was still smiling. 8 hours after the game ended, I had not stopped smiling. So I think that qualifies as my favorite sports moment of the year.
Well, someone chime in. How many facial muscles or whatever are in our face? Kind of said the same thing twice. And they're like hundreds. So anyways, I don't know how I'm trying to.
It was my aerobic workout for the year.
There's 43. Okay.
43. I knew one of you all would have that. Daryl, as you finish rolling your eyes and are gagging at Michele's favorite moment, which, yes, was our Super Bowl, so flipping what? What was your favorite moment, D. Foust?
Oh, I don't blame you, Michelle. I had that same feeling after a certain basketball game, but that wasn't the best part of 2016 for me. I was just thinking over the year of all these championships we had. We were really blessed with championship games over 2016. You go back to the Super Bowl, you go to the NCAA basketball tournament with Villanova winning, and, like Heather said, the NBA Finals was a lot of fun to watch. But the best thing for me, I think, was the Cubs winning the World Series finally.
Oh.
And in Game 7 as well, and in the fashion that they did. I feel like they brought so much excitement back to baseball. I mean, not for a lot of people. For me, I've always been a baseball fan, so the excitement was already there. Not a Cubs fan, I'm a Reds fan, but I am very excited that the World Series winners will be playing the Reds next year. That's what I was, taking out of a moral victory for the Cubs winning series. But just that game 7 itself, it was so exciting. Home runs were traded. It went to extra innings. There was a rain delay, and it was just so exciting to see that streak broken. And just a win by 1 run. I think it was in Cleveland too. So they didn't get to celebrate at home, but they had a hell of a parade with one of, I think I saw like the 5th biggest event in the world. There was millions of people there. So definitely the Cubs. I have a few Cubs friends who don't we all that got to we all have Cubs friends who got to celebrate that. Super exciting.
That's a very good one. I forgot about that because not only the rain delay happened after they tied the score. So it's like the Mother Nature was like in cahoots with the TV people for ratings purposes. It was like a drama on TV. It was just playing out. So it was. Yeah,
and the Cubs said that was what revamped them in the clubhouse when they were waiting to come back. I think Cleveland was kind of bored.
All right, cool. All right, ladies, you all killed it tonight. Before we let you, we end the show. I'll start with Michelle. Michelle, you have your Monday night internet radio show. Share with us what's going on with you tomorrow night.
Well, I can't share much about what's going on tomorrow night because I just don't know. Our show is Big Blue Views. We're on from 8 till 10 p.m. on Monday nights. What's really exciting is next Monday night, January 9th, will be our 100th episode, and we've got actually a 3-hour show planned, and several of our best guests from our previous 99 episodes. We've got several of them making appearances. Personally, with my Camera Mills Radio connection, I will be covering the UK women's basketball game on Thursday night, and I will be in Rupp Arena Saturday for the Arkansas game.
Very cool. Daryl, social media stuff.
Yeah, like Heather said, she's been on my show a couple times. Love to bring her on to talk about UK. Only when U of L wins, though. Just kidding. But she's been a great voice for our show. It's Kentucky Women Talk Sports. We do it every Saturday at 1 o'clock. It's on 970 a.m. Our station was actually just bought out by a new company, so I'll see how that kind of turns out in these next couple of weeks. Heather, when I messaged you about where you lived, it was because my co-host Maria is going to be moving to Lexington, and I'm not sure how much longer she'll be able to continue with us. So I was seeing if you were in the Ville, and maybe we could get together, but you being in Cincinnati, I'll have to take that trip up there.
I'm not in the Ville. That's where I'm up in Cincinnati, unfortunately.
Well, I'll still bring you on. It's no problem. But thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. People can follow me on Twitter at Daryl Foust. 4 is my favorite number, as you've heard before. And then our show is at KYWomen_sports.
Very cool. Heather, wrap us up. Give us your live take before we get out of here.
Yeah, first of all, you can follow me on Twitter at Heather Tungate 7. I'm also on Snapchat, Heather_Tungate. I am actually going to the Kentucky Texas A&M game on Tuesday night, so I'm excited about that. That was a birthday gift from my mom. Thanks, Mom. You're the best. And I hope to continue to see Kentucky play well in the SEC, and it's a 9 o'clock ESPN Tuesday night game, so go Cats. Hopefully they win.
All right, ladies. For Michele Brown, Daryl Foust, Heather Tungate, Kevin Hale, bidding everyone a good night and a pleasant Monday. I'm off tomorrow anyway. Everyone have a good night. Thanks for hanging with us. You can check out the uploads on SoundCloud, YouTube, and iTunes. Ladies, peace out. Thanks for your time tonight.
No problem. Go Cards.
Go Cats.
See you guys.
Heather, say go Kevin.
Go Kevin.
Go away. Go away, Kevin. Go away.
She was going to say, yeah, she left out the word away. So, yeah.
Away. Good night, ladies. Much love.
Night.